Hypertime to podcast.
Welcome, everyone, into the Hypertime 2 podcast. And we are back to do the episode that we were originally planning on doing last month before the unfortunate passing of John Paul Leon. And so to do this with me is my co-host and friend, Alan Muir. Alan, how are you?
I'm good. It's just things are going to be good when we're talking about the death of a fictional character. That is just listeners. This is going to be us getting angry.
Yeah, like we said, we were going to talk about this during our 0 hour episodes, and here we are to do it because, that really did remind me just how much I hated a lot of what DC was doing at the time, and specifically what we're going to talk about today, the death of Ryan Choi, is kind of a good moment of kind of what DC was being accused of a lot during this period. I'm trying to think. Were you reading comics at this point? I think this was, God, what was it, like 2010?
It was 2010, and no, it wasn't. I was, or no, I think it was. I think it was either then, or it may have been like 6 months after this.
And so, were you familiar with Ryan Choi at all before you learned of his his death and all this?
No, I didn't even know even when I started reading comics, I had no idea this issue existed. Titans Hunt, or not Titans Hunt, Titans Villains for Hire Special #1, written by Eric Wallace, who I believe is the showrunner for The Flash. Yeah, I learned of this issue, this whole thing existing from an episode of iFanboy, when they were just tearing Siege to shreds, or not Siege, the Sentry, like the Sentry funeral. Issue.
How'd they go from the Sentry to Ryan Choi, or was it just like a mixture of things they were talking about?
Have you ever listened to iFanboy?
Here and there. I usually try and find like their interviews.
For like research?
Yeah.
Okay, so their Pick of the Week podcast is them talking about like X amount of books, and it just happened to be like they just happened to be like Sentry, Fallen Hero, or Fallen something, and then after that it was either after that or it was after DC Legacies.
Mm-hmm.
Which that I love that book.
Yeah, I think you brought that up on a podcast before too.
Yes, Len Wein basically recapping 80 years, 70 to 80 years of DC continuity.
And that was like a 12-issue maxi series, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. I never read it, but it was always like I would see like the periods that I was always interested in, and I'm like, I really should grab these issues, but I never did.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know if it's still in print anymore, because that's one of the few books I've heard of that I heard of stuff about it, actively sought out like the store, like some of the images or some of the art, and I decided I needed to get it. And I think Joe Kubert worked on it as well. He may have done one issue or something, but they got to the death of Ryan Choi, and Tom Caters, who aside from iFanboy, he had a podcast called Tom Versus, like Tom versus the Flash, Tom versus Justice League of America. It's just really really funny stuff. They just tore it, or Tom Cater just said DC needs to, or DC is killing Ryan Choi because they want to make Deathstroke cool Like they want to make him look cooler because he's killing a major hero. I thought, and I would just, and that line always stuck with me until like a couple hours ago when I actually read the issue, and turns out that it was actually Deathstroke putting together his Titans, which included Cheshire, Tattooed Man, Osiris, and I'm forgetting Cinder or something.
Mm-hmm. I believe she's a new character at that time, right?
Oh, then that means she's either dead or hasn't been used.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard from her since then, which isn't necessarily a bad thing considering that they basically just made her a rape victim and gave her like all the rape tropes and all that.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Did you see the issue where it showed her like when Deathstroke was watching her like do her business?
Yeah.
Oh my god! I'm like, why would you do this? Why would you do this?
Kids can get access to this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, as we mentioned, Cinder is a rape victim, and so the way that she would go about killing basically these men who would take advantage of women and all this is that she would sleep with them, except that while they were doing the business, she would use her powers, which is
flame on,
essentially. Yes, and yeah, in the middle of doing it, just oh my god! I read that, I was like, "What is this? What is this character? Why are we doing this?"
Well, you have to find out in Titans issue number 24.
Yeah, so
and I'd forgotten where Ray Palmer was at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was very close to the end of the good old DC, as I like to call it. And sometime this month will be the 10-year anniversary of the first issue of Flashpoint, which I just find insane because my life was in a complete total different direction 10 years ago. And I mean, I was still instead of I was the kid who brought his comics to school, bags and bags of comics to just I'm surprised I didn't get robbed.
Yeah, I never had to bring any comics to school like during middle school or whatever, just because they actually had some comics there in the library, so I'd always go and grab them. Typically like Spider-Man, but it was like Clone Saga Spider-Man.
Oh man.
But you know what? I still loved it.
I mean, I will say the greatest thing that happened to me during while in school or the saddest thing that happened to me during school was reading Essex County.
Oh yeah.
I had it it was the tear rolling down my eye, and one of the aides had to come get me because I was like, I've heard people talking about how emotional this comic is, or this graphic novel is, and I have to see if it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like holding back tears, and then it just slow tear.
Well, this topic that we're discussing today is something that made me tear up because of pure frustration. Ryan Choi was a character I was really into. Basically, when DC was trying to get multiple books off the ground, I tried my best to support some of those, such as Blue Beetle and Shadow Pact, the All New Atom. And I love the All New Atom. Gail Simone's a fantastic writer, and the way she always is able to include humor into all of her books while still feeling natural most of the time is pretty good. If you can get past the first 6 issues, because it has John Byrne art, which this era of John Byrne is not one I was particularly fond of.
Yes, it's not the 80s anymore.
It is not,
Or the
but
90s.
or the 90s. God.
But Avengers West Coast is still good.
I remember seeing John Byrne's art when he worked with Gale on Action Comics, and I'm like, where is the John Byrne I remember? Because this is not it. Like, all these characters are like very scratchy looking, and you have Superman looking like he's taking a dump on the cover. Like, John, what are you doing? Like, please go back to your old style if you can. But yeah, that was kind of rough to get through the first 6 issues just because of his art. But yeah, I mean, it was a good series. It was a fantastic series. And to kind of understand the death of Ryan Choi, you kind of have to understand at least one aspect of the mainline series, because it all comes down to Dwarf Star, who is basically a sociopath who loves killing people, but instead of, say, carving a hash mark into his skin, he likes to read poetry to the people he's about to kill or whatever. So during the mainline Adam series, Dwarf Star and Ryan Choi basically fight one time. And during that fight, they both shrink down to like, the size of particles. And Ryan basically like ninja steals Dwarf Star's belt and then pieces out back to normal size. And Dwarf Star, who is an agoraphobe, is now trapped at like molecule sized and has no way of getting out. And so he is like losing it, like for, I don't know, 10 issues or so, as you find out that the longer he's away from his sizing belt, his body is just naturally starting to grow back to regular size. And so by the time Gail Simone leaves, it feels like she was planning on doing something different with Dwarf Star, but she ends up leaving the book, and you never really get to see that play out. And so the book finishes up and everything, and it feels like something is left hanging. And that's where Titans Villains for Hire comes in, where we basically learn that Dwarf Star puts out a hit on Ryan Choi. And Ryan gets back from fighting some villain or monster or whatever with Ray Palmer. And when he goes back home, he is greeted by Deathstroke. And not just Deathstroke, but Deathstroke's like new team of Titans. And oh my God, Alan. So they basically go at it throughout the whole issue, except for one point in which I guess his girlfriend, I don't know, because apparently stuff happened between the end of the Adam run and Titans Villain for Hire that I'm not aware of or something. But his girlfriend comes over and they were planning on doing something, but he says that he's busy, so Deathstroke doesn't kill her. And then, he sends her on her way and Deathstroke kills him. It's
Okay, so I have the issue open right now. Who was Panda Potter?
Panda Potter. That Panda was like his roommate in the main series. They were both teachers at the college that they were working at. And do what?
At Ivytown?
At Ivytown. And so, yeah, they were basically like best buds, essentially.
Yeah, because it says here, I failed to save my best friend, Panda Potter, and then I fell in love with Panda's girlfriend. Which, yeah.
Yeah, something had to have happened between the all-new Adam and that issue, because Panda was still alive, from what I remember, after Adam's series, so...
Yeah, it feels like they're going extreme Cliff Notes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gets weirder because, something comes up at the end, which I was completely unaware of during his funeral. But we'll bring that up when I get there.
Can we just talk about before we just talk about how like our just our anger? Can we talk about how good the art is?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. Who was the artist?
Okay, so there are four artists um, that were billed: Fabrizio Fiorentino,
Mm-hmm.
um, Mike Mayhew, who has a very distinct style, Sergio Arenio, and Walden Wong.
Mm.
And I just love it. It says special thanks to Jeff Johns.
No, no, thank you, Jeff.
Hey, I'm excited for his JSA series coming up. I need that more than anything else in the world.
Well, you kind of wish that into existence over the
Oh,
past several months.
oh, you mean that, and my that tweet I put up?
Uh huh.
Yeah, it's just like the next day, JSA series happening. Oh my god! And I also like the callback to Identity Crisis, where it was Wally, Carter Hall, Ali, Dinah,
Mm.
versus Slade. Like that just a little panel, or no, I think it was a double page spread.
Yeah, the very infamous identity crisis scene that a lot of people are not particularly fond of, but really it's one of those things where how do you realistically, how do you fight against the Justice League? And so there's already plenty of kind of suspension of belief going on anytime you fight them. But I feel like people were really upset about Deathstroke doing anything that he did during that issue.
Yeah, and like this, there's a bit of a foreshadowing when you go into what happens with like in the there are multiple flashbacks throughout this episode, not this episode. I'm sorry, saying episode because I've had a previous show, a previous there are flashbacks for different or multiple flashbacks for each of the villains that Slade hires
Mm-hmm.
or brings onto the job, and there's a foreshadow to what will happen to Ryan.
And what does happen to Ryan Allen?
Oh, he gets impaled with the sword by Deathstroke, put or he gets shrunk, put in a cigar box, and given a dwarf star. So
Just like no respect whatsoever. Just the thing that bothered me the most about all of this is that around this time, around like Blackest Night and all of this,
oh no, this is Brightest Day.
yeah, this I mean, Blackest Night, the whole thing with Blackest Night is that they were trying to set up a universe in which heroes don't always come back. Like leading up to that event, Jeff Johns was like, "Oh, we know there's like a revolving door, and we're going to try and stop it so death is more meaningful, and we're not just going to bring people back willy nilly." And DC was also being criticized heavily for all of their like very mature and dark stories, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to change that. We're not going to be so, we're not going to kill everybody anymore." And then they
Oh
turned
wait,
around and killed Ryan Choi.
uh, didn't they was it New 52 or deep just regular DC before Flashpoint when they did that grotesque version of the Wonder Twins?
That was before New 52. I believe that was like Sean McKeever during his Teen Titans run or somewhere in there.
Okay, yeah,
Where like Wonder Dog eats the twins or whatever it was.
I
Yeah.
just have to say, do you remember? Uh, I pitched this to Josh about like for a future either episode or episodes, um, about like storylines that were pretty much ended when the New 52 was revealed. I just thought of two two books that like two series finales, if you will, for books or final issues. that actually had the most. One had a very light tone, and the other had actually like an actual felt like you were watching an episode of the old Justice League. I, I'm forgetting if I think it was the final issue of Detective Comics, like the original run, where uh, Damien is talking to three kids,
I have to go
and
back and look. I can't remember what was going on in Detective Comics.
uh, it was it was either that or the Batman title, but he's telling the story of Batman, or he's telling a story to three kids. One of them isn't all there, like isn't the smartest kid, and one is Bob Kane, one is Bowfinger, and I forgot. I don't know if the other one is Jerry Robinson, and I think it was the end of the James Robinson Justice League book where they were doing basically the equivalent of the equivalent of a clip show,
Mm.
but in the style of Community. We're just reminiscing about things that we never actually that no one ever actually saw, like a Ron Thanagar war. But then, like as the as the team is getting ready to leave, it's Dick Grayson and Don Troy are the last two to leave, and Donna's talking about like, will they remember us? Will what we've done mattered? And that and people said that James Robinson, like he was a bad he got worse around this time.
I mean, he did give us like Cry for Justice.
That 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 was that was before, so he was finding his footing.
So yeah, I mean, just like this period of DC is just kind of a bummer because they started making promises that they weren't keeping, and if you still wanted to believe that their promises are being kept, then they just didn't really care. Like, if you're going to tell me that you're not going to bring people back from the dead willy nilly and you're going to be more lighthearted, don't turn around and then stab a beloved character and shrink him down to put him in a box to give to a serial killer before you go and change up a beloved team and make them villains who go around burning people to death while riding them during intercourse. Like, just like that is what's so frustrating. Like Ryan Choi, and it was all for nothing. All for nothing. Like nothing good came out of this. Especially since they basically rebooted everything shortly after with New 52. It was just like this giant middle finger. Like even Gail Simone came out on message boards saying that she was not a fan of how this all went down. And she was
Okay,
even
okay. I just looked up the trying to get my facts straight, and I got my facts wrong as usual. It was Batman issue 713, and as for Justice League, it was issue 60. Fittingly, man, this it's just crazy when you think about this team. Uh, Dick Grayson's Batman, Supergirl, Starman, Congarella, Donna Troy, Jade, and Jesse Quick.
and funny enough, they show up in all this too. But we're not there yet. So yeah, during all this, Gail Simone does sort of uh, come back into the picture after Ryan's death, and this is during her Secret Six run. And at that point, she kind of starts this like new Secret Six team, and two of the characters on there are Giganta, who has had relations with Ryan in the past, including in his main book, and Dwarfstar. Uh, Giganta actually brings it up in the open that she had dated Adam, and I think she mentions that she's like currently dating Adam, which makes it even
Makes
more.
makes it more of an editorial mess.
Yeah, because at this point, I'm like,
Or
okay, so who was Ryan dating at this point? Was it that woman that he came over right before he died? Is it Giganta? Like, who is it at this point? I don't really know. And all the while, Dwarf Star's, not mentioning anything about what he did with Ryan. So this all kind of comes to a head when Amanda Waller kind of insinuates that she told Giganta about Dwarf Star and putting a hit out on Ryan. Put out on Ryan. So Giganta basically like seduces Dwarf Star in his hotel room, and this is in Secret 628. And
is this going where I think it's going?
I think it is, yes.
Oh man.
So she takes off his belt, like as his little size changing belt, and says, "I love small men. You might say I have a fetish. My boyfriend has the same ability. Maybe you know him. His name was Ryan, you sick son of a bitch." And then she starts like beating the piss out of him. And he attempts to like fight back with his knife and everything. And she just reminds him that, Giganta isn't like a prostitute or a college girl. Like, this is a woman who stood toe to toe against Wonder Woman. Like, he's not going to do anything to her. And so, yeah, she basically like duct tapes him up and says that she wants to learn everything about him and why he does what he does. And I think the issue ends with her closing the door. And it's just like this kind of great scene of like Dwarf Star getting his comeuppance by someone who cared about Ryan. Though my complaint about that is that I would have loved to have seen that actually happen instead of like behind the scenes stuff. But we actually do get to see kind of what happened with Dwarf Star in Titans 32. Titans 33, I think it was. In 32, that's where we find out Ray Palmer discovers that Dwarf Star had a play in his death. And then 33, Ray meets up with Dwarf Star, who is like in a full body cast in the hospital after what Giganta did to him. And after Dwarf Star basically spills the beans about Deathstroke being the one who killed him, he expects Ray to help protect him with Justice League or whatever. And Ray's like, no, and just kind of walks out. And so, as far as I know, that's kind of the last we see of Dwarf Star, period.
Well, he made his way to the Flash.
Oh, did he? Like the show or the comics?
The show.
Mm.
It was from it was Flash season I think 4.
Huh.
Yeah, Honey I Shrunk Team Flash.
Do they kind of write him the same way?
Well, they had him. Flash season 4 was the season with the Thinker, and that was all like that. Then sort of the crux of that season was the bus where the bus met is, which included Ralph Dibny, played by an actor who has been canceled for horrible tweets and Instagram stuff. And Dwarf Star was one of the bus metas, and I think he ended up getting. I think he just escaped. With Flash, it's always like they either escape or they, particularly this season, they get absorbed by Clifford DeVoe.
How do you escape from the Flash?
Yeah, and Derek Mars ended up playing Dwarf Star.
I'm kind of surprised he would be there and not like Legends of Tomorrow, because that's where Adam is, right?
Yeah, the article actually mentions Hank, not Hank Pym, Ray Palmer.
Well, yeah. So after Ray like discovers that Deathstroke's part of it, he actually does go to the Justice League, who, as you mentioned at the time, was like Dick Grayson, who has a very known history with Deathstroke, and Donna Troy, Supergirl, and all them. And so they actually meet up with Deathstroke and his Titans, and they basically fight it out in Titans 36 and Titans Annual 2011. And ultimately, it leads to nothing. Ray is hoping to, bring Slade in, and doesn't work. Slade gets away with everything, and you find out that his ultimate goal is to use Ryan's belt to resurrect his son Jericho. And the whole plan was to help the other Titan members bring back people from their past as well, including, Cheshire and Roy Harper's child.
Leanne.
Oh, there was a whole nother.
And then Tattooed Man.
DC.
Then Tattooed Man's son as well.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get what Ryan Choi says to him when, like, he says, "Last I heard, you turned a new leaf," and he looked like he was wearing, or it looked very racially insensitive.
To Tattooed Man?
Yeah.
If I remember right, around this time they were kind of like pushing Tattooed Man to be kind of more hero than villain. I think that started in Final Crisis, because I think he played a role in like one of the side issues. I think it was Resistance or something, where he was kind of helping the heroes out more than he typically would have. But I can't really remember anything post that with Tattooed Man.
And to 2016 references, or 2016 called Slipknot referenced.
Yes, Slipknot.
I feel bad for that. Other outside people who don't read comics, when people ask them if they heard of Slipknot, the character, or say, "Oh, the guy from Suicide Squad," the guy from Suicide Squad who was the first person to die.
You're like, no, he's so much cooler than that dude. Yeah. So yeah, it all wraps up in Titans 38. This is where Ryan has his funeral. It's like, I think it was all like 2 pages. It was nothing, essentially. We learned that he had hooked up with Amanda, which is that woman from that he was able to get away from his house during the attack. And apparently he has a child with her, which again is like, when did this happen? Where did it happen? What does Giganta think about this? Like, I'm like, I don't know, like, all this history with Ryan, apparently, that I thought I did. And so I don't know if this is actually stuff that happened in the comics, or if it was just like, we'll try and make you feel even worse for Ryan by faking all this stuff that happened to him. Like, I don't really know. So yeah, the funeral in general was just kind of sad and pathetic in a way. Like, nothing... It wasn't a good ending to his death. Like, it's like, you killed him to make Slade and his Titans that are only going to be around for maybe a year look strong, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't really think it succeeded in doing that. And to bring back Jericho, who, would end up turning on Slade and joining Roy to... I don't know if they actually ever formed a team after that, or if that was another one of the new 52 casualties that ended up happening.
Which one?
Like at the end of Titans 38, we see like Jericho like shaking hands with Roy, and it seems like they're going to form a new team.
No, Roy would end up hanging out with Jason Todd and Starfire as part of Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they never actually did that before the New 52 started.
Keep in mind, many stories that were killed because of New 52.
Yeah. But yeah, that is ultimately like the death of Ryan Choi wrapped up in a quick little bubble about DC promising to be better with its characters and promising to be more lighthearted and not kill and resurrect characters as freely as they had been doing, only to turn around, kill Ryan Choi, bring back Jericho, and then pissing it all away before New 52.
Well, I mean, Ryan Choi was gone the entirety of New 52.
Mm-hmm.
He came back.
It's
Or
Convergence, right?
no, it was the Justice League of America book that, or it was either Justice League of America, like for Rebirth, or it had to do with the Justice League versus Suicide Squad that they were spinning the JLA out of. Like they were just reintroducing characters like Ryan Choi, Killer Frost.
Okay, I had to look it up because I was positive he was in Convergence, and yeah, they had the uh, Convergence, the Atom, like 2 issues, and he was in there as well. Where, funny enough,
He dies.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I read it. I remember Slade is part of the whole thing. But yeah, Ray and Ryan work together, and let's see.
Yeah, because I remember with Rebirth, uh, Ryan Choi is looking like he's no, he was reintroduced in Rebirth, like the Rebirth 80 page special, and it was him sort of like he was being left a message by Ray Palmer, who was stuck in the microverse.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm reading this from DC Fandom, and so I'm going to go back and read the issue because I completely forgot about this. So apparently, in synopsis for Return of the Atom, Ray Palmer has just learned that the voice in his head for the past year was not merely a symptom of his own insanity, but that of an ostensibly alive Ryan Choi, who is thought to have died at the hands of Deathstroke.
What?
Ray considers that Ryan must have been displaced somehow into the alternate dimension where their mass goes when they shrink using their biobelts. Ryan supposes it was a survival mechanism, but he is alive and in partial control of a quantity of mass, which happens to be Ray's right hand. Oh my god, who wrote this?
I think this was this was
Tom
when
Payer.
Jeff Johns was still editor in chief, right?
I think so. What year was this?
He was
2015?
either editor in chief or chief content creator.
What it? Oh my god! What? Ray realizes that he's been using Ryan's predicament unwittingly, and he'd rather see the young man live than live through him. Rather than let Ryan do so, as he seems intent on doing, Ray grows his left hand to a phenomenal size and takes a swing at Barracuda, who severs it at the wrist. Hurriedly, he urges Ryan to do what he needs to, and within moments, Ryan forms a body for himself out of the giant severed hand.
So,
Oh my god, I need to go back and read this issue.
okay, I think I made a mistake. My life by reading comic books.
Oh, comics can be so stupid, and sounds awesomely dumb. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so yeah, they end up fighting Deathstroke. Ryan wraps the shrink belt around both Ray and Deathstroke's hands, explaining that he's going to do a bit of redistribution. He activates the belt, and when it's done its work, Ray discovers that he has his hand back, and Deathstroke has lost some mass in both of his. So I'm guessing Deathstroke at this point has like little baby hands. Oh my god. Yep, I'm going to have to go dig those out of my... go find that trade. And reread that. Oh my god. So yeah. Apparently, despite Ryan's body being shown to have died, they decided just to retcon that and said that he's like living inside of Ray's hand or something. Comics.
I mean, people. I don't know.
And we'll leave it with that. Alan, is there anything else you want to talk about Ryan Choi before we head out?
No, I've made a mistake in my life.
The greatest mistake, Alan. The greatest mistake. So with that, we will bid you adieu. Like normal, please rate, review, talk about the podcast with your friends. At some point, we will be back. I think I have it scheduled for September. More than likely, we will do another episode during our little hiatus here. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Hypertime Pod. If you want to send us an email, you can. I'm getting to the point where I'm tired of spamming that email, so I don't really check it anymore. But Hypertime, the number 2 podcast at gmail.com. Also, check us out over at VGU.tv. If you want some video game stuff, we have podcasts such as Players Club and Win, and plenty of videos on our YouTube channel as well. Stuff pretty much goes up every day. Please check it out. I wish I could be doing more work there. But Alan, Emmett, Graydon, everyone's putting in work over there. It's really good. You can follow me on Twitter at jmillie99. That's JMILLE99. Alan, where can they follow you at?
They can follow me on Twitter at the Alamir, and just to share about something about our YouTube channel. No, never mind. I'm not gonna. They could just follow me on Twitter at the Alamir. I occasionally post, occasionally retweet stuff that's things that I believe that are right and is what should be with the world.
Do you have an example we can use for Alan's tweet of the bye week?
Yes, I do. This is from June 3rd. Just connected the dots on the connection between the scoring and story beats and the endings of Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. Anakin looking at his future, ... his fate.
I know we don't really do it very much, and I think I need to start doing it. But do you want to start, like, kind of pimping the things we're doing over at VGU, like specific videos or articles or anything?
Sure.
Because I think we really should. I don't have anything pulled up right now, so but like in the future, we should probably start doing that.
Celebrating G4 Part 11, Sweat.
I know Emmett put up his review of Knockout City.
Yeah.
Graydon's doing his Life is Strange playthrough, and you're still having your Samurai Jack stuff come out. And
oh man, one more day. Not one more day.
Almost done.
One more week, and I never have to think about that again. I can delete that folder that I'm just holding on to in case something happens to the YouTube channel.
I know I've got some videos on the back end, like I got a playthrough of VVVVV. I have some smaller games like Project Cat and You Died, but a Necromancer Revived You. And like 4 or 5 episodes of Parasite Eve recorded. At some point, I just need to get those out there. So, yeah, I'll be better with promoting our site and stuff in future episodes. But just going to make it clear here, I will start doing that in our outro as well. So,
yeah, because you should like it used to be just Emmett doing the housekeeping for like site stuff, podcast stuff, YouTube stuff, and now I'm doing the same. I'm now doing that with Win.
Yeah, I heard you doing it over there, so I'm like, I should probably do that here as well.
Yeah, synchronicity.
Yeah, let's get it all on one page.
I mean, synergy. Either or.
Well, let's synergize into our outro. I'll just kill all the synergy right there with that pause. But yeah, I will. Oh my god, I can't even talk. I'm worn out from the day. Take it.
When is this coming out?
I will try to have this out on Wednesday.
Okay, well, coming soon to the YouTube channel. Me, Emmett, possibly Graydon, possibly someone else. Or we're gonna try to do some E3 coverage. I'm sure Graydon will do, and Emmett will do some written content. We're gonna try to make some AV content as well.
That should be good. I wish I could take part in that. I got way too much going on right now.
I mean, not to be the stuck in yesteryear guy, but I think I think it was the GTA 5 spoiler cast that Matt really wanted to do at that time. You were on it and barely spoke.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember going through that episode and being like, Matt and Adnan are like,
Yeah,
they're the GTA pros. I'm like, I can't, there's nothing I can add to this conversation that they already are talking about. So I'm trying to improve, Alan. I'm trying.
no, you've done a great.
If I remember right, that was like my very first podcast I've ever recorded too, and it showed.
Yeah, Meanwhile, I've been doing this shit for like 10 years.
And you do it like 4 or 5 times a week, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're like recording stuff on the side and you're just not putting it out into the ether.
I mean, hey, to be fair, with you saying that stuff about yourself, when I first started doing Gamercast with Prime and James, I was very terrified by James because I was worried I would say the wrong thing and get fired. But apparently, because I was editing, and I just use air quotes, the podcast, I didn't have to worry about anything. So sometimes it takes a while.
It does, and I'm glad to be doing it. I think that was part of the reason it like took forever for me to get this thing off the ground, just because I'm like, yeah, I really want to do it, and then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. But here we are, we're doing it. At some point, I would like to be back on like Win or Players Club occasionally if I ever find the time to do that.
I mean, in like 5-6 months, it's Game of the Year.
Mm.
It's gonna be the same as it was this year.
God, we're halfway into 2021, and I've barely played like any 2021 games. I have my running list of games I've played. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've played 8 games that have come out in 2021. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do for Game of the Year unless I start playing a whole bunch of new stuff these next 6 months. All right, let's get out of here. Yeah. we're just riffing at this point, essentially. So, thank you all for listening. We will bid you all adieu. See you further down the Hypertime. Take care and goodbye.
This has been a VGU.TV production. For all of the hottest hot takes and other opinions on video games, music, and a lot more, tune in to VGU.TV.